everybody knows.
Right, where do I start? The way I did it was to fight hard in any way possible. I realised, you know, it'll be 10 years next year since I started the school dinners campaign in the UK. And a few things happened to me sort of emotionally that made this journey very important. Obviously, Alice had inspired me since I was about 15 years old, and I've been following her journey. And this is what's important about...
You're 30 now.
I'm 40 now, 40. But it's important to have, you know, it's not just the work that any of us do, it's the ripple effect on others that do wonderful things. And more importantly, this room is about the coming together, not one voice, but a choir, an orchestra, a loud voice. And when you deal with good people and good farmers and good artisans, very often we're too nice to be too loud, you know. But the reality is, and let's just refer to America alone, you know, we're fighting against $4.6 billion worth of advertising crap to kids a year. And if you want to kind of multiply that around the world, we're talking about, you know, $25 billion of advertising to the world's children. I mean, that's just a guess, but, you know, we're talking about a lot of money. So this is not an argument, this is a fight. And, you know, I think there's a few things in question here. I mean, look, life has changed a lot through technology in the last 40, 50 years. Frozen technology, microwave technology, distribution technology, additives, chemicals, technology to create food out of food that shouldn't be food. But I think ultimately what, you know, this is not exceptional. Change has always happened in human history, and we've always adjusted. So I would like to think that although bad health has been an exception, it's been an exceptional 40 years for bad health. The graph of bad health is like this. It's about 45 years old. It's been radical. It's been global, certainly in the Western world. Now the Western world is infiltrating the developing countries. The effect on our food and our diets and our farming techniques is double the speed hurting those countries. We now have countries, last year, guys, was the first time in human history ever where more people died from obesity and diet-related disease than hunger and famine. Okay? So this is a tipping point. We are in a tipping point. In Britain, we have some of the most unhealthy children in Europe. In Mexico and America, you have some of the most unhealthy kids in the world. Australia's just behind. Germany's just behind. You know, it's not really. It's a very damaging time as far as child health is concerned. So this is my kind of emotion, really. Is I believe, and we believe, that it's a child's human right to have access to food education and to learn to cook and understand where food comes from and how it affects their body. And I'd like you to stand up if you agree with that. So, I think that's, feel free to sit down. And also, I'd like anyone that sat down, I want them to stand up. No, and I think the reason I got you to stand up, is not just because it's cute to feel your support, but the problem with the kind of fight at the moment is we need to work as a team, as one voice, stronger, better. You have to remember that the enemy is very rich, they're very strategic, they employ the cleverest minds, and they're well dug in. They're well dug in. And we're kind of throwing stones. But my belief, and that's why, I mean, and to put it in perspective, I made a documentary about 10 years ago, okay? And we told the story about how Britain fed children terrible food, largely, every day, 190 days of the year, from the age of 4 to 18. And I felt that that was one of the reasons why our children were some of the most unhealthy in Europe. That documentary got such traction that we got $1 billion out of the British government. We changed law and we created a piece of paper that said what school food should look like. Now, the only reason I mention this is it's really a metaphor for everything. I mean, whether it's hospital food, the food we feed old people, we continue that story in America, but the truth is this story is a global story.
It's also, I say it's worth going into a little more. What did that piece of paper say? How did it change the food? And also, do talk about getting school food into the actual curriculum, not just the lunchroom.
I mean, first of all, it was a set of standards. So to put it in perspective, this is how crazy it is. In a time of the worst child health that we'd seen in Britain, we had no standards for children's food in school. But if any of you wanted to produce dog food in Britain, you had to fulfill a criteria that was that fat.
Well, that's because the English care more about dogs.
Yes, the English did care more for dogs than their children. But this is the craziness that we were dealing with. So now we have a set of standards that are pretty good, and it's about nutrition, the balance on the plate, where you can source the meat from, where you can't, what meat content a sausage would be, a patty would be, a burger would be. It was only frying once a week, not 5 days a week, salad bars. So it was a whole kind of mixture of things that is basic common sense that anyone good or any good parent would do. But now it was law. But I mean, I think what really important to back it up, and Alice has been talking about this as well, is not one thing that we do can fix the problem we have. It has to be an ambush. It has to be a holistic approach. It has to be the whole school approach. And you can take that approach to a town or a city. But, in Britain, thankfully, 2 months ago, it was made law for every child to learn about food physically.
Just stop there and give them applause. That's
Yeah. Bravo.
And I think, although we've had a massive transformation of the school food service, of course there's still problems. It's 120,000 cooks and 26,000 schools, and it's a big deal. But standards, of course, have risen across the board. Probably over half are good, 40% struggle. But we're talking about a system that hadn't been invested in for 40 years. But I think what's nice now is all children under 7 years old get a free school lunch.
That's just
So
nice.
it's. But I think it goes further than that, because I think it doesn't take that many people to specify the way that things should work. Like, whether it's the standards for school food, it just takes one person that cares to create that and police that. In a town or a city, it's not okay that hundreds of junk food restaurants are next to the exit of every school. It's not right. It's not right now. And so that kind of readjustment of civic duties, I think we've seen lots of mayors trying to change the way that we give licenses to restaurants near to schools. And I think, even what is fair and what isn't fair. Is it fair? I mean, like, part of me, I don't want to be too purist, because we live in a capitalist world, but I do think...
Not Alice.
But I think that, it's fair that if you're going to do discounts on hideous junk food in supermarkets, they should at least equal that with fresh food. I believe that would be a fantastic law. So I think each one of these little things you have to fight for. I mean, the only way that I achieved getting money out of the government and creating laws was because the way I told the story was, it became a voting debate. We did it 3 months before the election in Britain. I think it's fair to say that the only way you get big change is if people feel they're going to, governments only change if they feel they're going to lose the vote and not get in again. I mean, in my opinion, Governments are obsessed by getting re-voted every 4 years. Businesses, businesses are obsessed by short-term profit, and families are seduced by convenience. And that, when you put that matrix together, that's when you get a broken food system that we're talking about.
I'm about to move to Carlo, and I was going to get to this later, but since you started it, how did you turn it into an election issue, and how do you think other people can help turn it into an actual election issue?
Well, I use the platform of a documentary and use traditional media. We didn't have a very robust social media platform 10 years ago. It was still analog and physical votes and stuff. But I think, and actually to end on a high from my point of view, we've been working with global. I mean, I know I've seen some hands up if there's any Food Revolution ambassadors in the room today. So there's like, I know there's like 4 or 5 here, and bless you all, and thank you for all your help. So we have. So we get selfies. But we were working with passionate people in many countries around the world, and what we learned was that they wanted one day to focus, to have one voice, and to make big, to get a local story to become a national story. And this year, on May the 16th, we had Food Revolution Day, and Food Revolution Day happens every year.
Yeah.
We have over 1,000 ambassadors around the world in 120 countries around the world. And we had over 10,000 activities on this one day. And just on Twitter alone, we had over 1 billion impressions in 24 hours. And that, I think, with social media and digital technology, my belief strongly is that now this is, in the next 2-3 years, we'll have opportunities as small producers, small farmers, as single voices to act as one. And I think that's where changing policies and making our voices heard will become much, much easier. Because doing what I did on TV is quite hard, and it requires a lot of luck, and not everyone in this room has the platform of TV to express themselves, you know. But I think things are changing on that front.
Okay, everybody.
Don't be intimidated, take action.